Hello, and welcome to the Kentucky Bankers Association's Vendor Viewpoint Podcast. I'm Nina Goddess, Head of Sponsorship Sales and Convention Coordinator here at the KBA. Each episode, we sit down and get personal with one of our trusted vendors. On our first episode, Billie Wade, Executive Director of Hope of Kentucky, sits down with Tamuna Loladze, Hope's Chief Operating Officer, and special guest from Hyden, Kentucky, to explain what Hope does, who it benefits, and what it could do for your bank. Billie will also highlight some of the more notable projects he's worked on since Hope of Kentucky began. Before we get to the podcast, I would like to personally invite you to the KBA's 130th Annual Convention, September 19th through the 22nd, held at Omni Grove Park Inn in beautiful Asheville, North Carolina. For more information about the program, to register and to reserve your room, go to kbaconvention.com. Now, without further ado, take it away, Billie.
Well, thank you very much, Nina. I thought I'd start by giving a little brief history of why we started Hope some 11 years ago. Hope was a result of a void that I saw in the market for permanent debt on affordable housing tax credit projects that utilize the low-income housing tax credit program, commonly referred to as LIHTC. I was at a developers conference that put on by Kentucky Housing Corporation in Lexington, and several developers there referenced how difficult it was to place that perm debt. The reasoning that perm debt is difficult to be placed is because it has to be fixed for the life of the tax credits, or 15 years. As you can imagine, most banks don't want to put on much of that type debt on their books because of the interest rate risk that's involved for that 15-year period. One developer stated that there was a lending consortium in North Carolina that originated these type loans, and it would be good to have something very similar to that in Kentucky. So I flew down to Raleigh and spent a couple of days reviewing their program and brought the idea back to the KBA. And by the way, they were also set up as a subsidiary of their state banking association. Nearly 11 years later, we now have 55 banks participating in our consortium. In Kentucky, that perm debt that's referenced is usually about $1 million or often less. So splitting it between 4 or 5 banks or more really minimizes the interest rate risk of any one bank. As Hope has evolved, we also do construction loans, we do bridge loans, we do pre-development loans, and we refinance these LIHTC projects after their 15-year compliance period. Bankers often ask us, are there CRA benefits to participation? The answer is definitely yes. Bank regulators specifically addressed this question in a series of Q&A a few years back. They explicitly stated that participating in loans through a regional consortium whose area covered the bank's assessment area did qualify for CRA benefits. Now, they went on to say that you couldn't rely on those type loans exclusively. You still had to do a baseline of loans and investments in your trade territory. But to the extent you did that baseline, anything participated in a more statewide or regional consortium would qualify. I might add that historically, many of the larger banks do participate more for CRA benefits, whereas many of the smaller to medium-sized banks tend to participate for the income generation and loan generation. With that, I'm now going to introduce Tamuna Loladze, Chief Operating Officer of Hope. Tamuna, can you tell our listeners a little about how you arrived at Hope of Kentucky almost 2 years ago?
Yes, sure. Thanks, Billie. It's actually an interesting story, and I might back up just a little bit and to give you kind of a full sense of my journey. I'm from a small country called Georgia, the former Soviet Union Republic, and I was very fortunate to come to the States at the age of 14 to continue my education at a U.S. boarding school. And this boarding school happened to be located in the state of Georgia. So I came from the country of Georgia to the state of Georgia here. So kind of a funny coincidence, Georgia to Georgia. Then I went on to get my undergrad at Transylvania University in Lexington, Kentucky. And that was my first introduction to Kentucky. Then after that, I got my master's degree at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. And soon after, I started working at the World Bank Group there in Washington, focusing on developing long-term financing, including capital markets for in developing countries for important needs such as infrastructure and housing. And coming from a developing country myself, I always wanted to have a contribution to economic development as part of my career. And I viewed financing as a very important tool for that, and kind of looking at it as a means to an end and a means to a bigger goal. So it seemed like being at the World Bank was the right place to be, but life happens, and fast forward a few years, I was actually back in Kentucky. My husband and I decided to move back, and I started looking at opportunities to pivot from international development to local economic development. And it was when I was working at a boutique investment firm that was focusing on a project to revitalize a neighborhood in Louisville when I met with you, Billie. And that was because Hope was actually also involved in that project. So I got to learn about Hope, learned about its mission to offer financing and loans for to help increase the supply of affordable housing. And that really resonated with me. And I realized that it really fit with that notion, that means to an end notion that I was looking for in my finance career. And so then, we got to talking and things worked out. And a year or so later, I was very happy to join Hope.
So you're ready to be our spokesman and the person that takes us to international status when we get ready to do that. Is that right, Tamuna?
Maybe so, yes.
That is a very interesting background that a lot of people don't really know about you, particularly Georgia to Georgia, All right, well, why don't you tell us what you think that the benefits that Hope can bring to our bankers that are members of Hope?
Sure, yeah. So there are several important benefits for our bank members. First is revenue diversification. So our bank members can access loans from different geographic areas, different clients and developers across the region that they may not otherwise have access to in their local market. So this, of course, helps to not only augment their revenue, but also diversify their revenue streams. And this can, in particular, be important for banks that are in communities that they may have fewer opportunities for loans. Second is risk management, which, Billie, you already touched upon some. With the consortium structure, no one bank has to take on a very large portion of the perm debt, as you mentioned. So that helps to both minimize and spread the risk, the interest rate risk among our bank participants, and similarly the credit risk for the larger construction loans that we may be doing. Third would be the ability to receive CRA credits, and that's not necessarily in the order of importance, obviously, I'm just listing them off, but CRA credits are very important, as you mentioned already, and I won't repeat that necessarily. And then last is ability to access our industry knowledge. Affordable housing and LIHTC can be a highly technical field. Banks, some banks who are possibly new to this area may not initially feel comfortable in getting into, doing these deals. But because Hope serves as the lead lender on our projects, they can rely on Hope's industry knowledge that we've built over the years and don't necessarily have to build that expertise in-house.
Great. Well, you mentioned geographic dispersion. As the bankers would imagine, most of our projects have been in Kentucky and surrounding states, but they may not realize we've actually done projects as far away as Oregon, Texas, Georgia, Kansas, and I think maybe a couple more that I may have missed there. So we're not exclusively Kentucky, but that's where the majority of our projects lie, which kind of transitions us right into the next section. And we're in the process of transitioning our name from Hope of Kentucky to Hope of the Midwest. So can Tamuna tell us a little bit about why we're making this change and how maybe that can benefit our members?
Yeah, so as you said, over the last 10 years or so, we have evolved and expanded our presence beyond Kentucky borders, working with both banks and developers in surrounding states across the whole Midwest region. And, including surrounding states like Ohio, Indiana, West Virginia, Tennessee, but some even farther, like you mentioned. And we feel that the new name will be more representative of this growth, and will also convey our ability to both source capital and work on projects across the whole Midwest region. And in terms of benefits for our bank members, obviously, first of all, is the ability to just access additional projects in new geographies. And some of them, could be with new developers. Others could be with existing developers that have projects in other states, that may be Kentucky-based developers, but work in, say, Ohio, for example. And then also, some of our bank members have locations in other states. And so they could involve those branches in projects we may have in those areas and help them receive CRA credits in those markets as well. And then the new name will also signal to banks in other states that they are free to join our consortium. We don't restrict our membership to only Kentucky banks, and this may be particularly valuable for banks that are in states that don't have a similar consortium like Hope. So this could help expand our overall potential capital pool. Of course, Kentucky is always our home and will continue to be our primary focus, but we are definitely very excited and looking forward to potential opportunities that this expanded regional outreach can bring.
Well, thank you very much, Tamuna. You mentioned not having similar consortia in surrounding states. And that's true of every state that Kentucky touches, which is 7. There are about 15 consortia like us around the country, but for us, at least, it presents opportunities, and none of those surrounding states have a consortia. So that expansion we're going through will hopefully allow us to get into all 7 of those states. At this point, I'd like to introduce a longtime friend of mine and a longtime friend of the Kentucky Bankers. That's Fred Brashear. Fred's the president and CEO of Hyden Citizens Bank, and Fred's bank and its sister banks in Canton and Boonville were inaugural members of Hope nearly 11 years ago. So Fred, why don't you give us a little bit of info about your bank's sizes, locations, and why you felt it was good for you to join Hope in the first place.
Thank you, Billy, and I'm very happy to be here because Lallate lending is a significant portion of our loan portfolio, but our three banks are located in Southeast Kentucky, economically challenged, demographically challenged, and Hyden is the lead bank at about $148 million. Boonville is about 60 million and Canton about 64 million. So, we've grown significantly from the stimulus money and have had challenges about locating the excess funding we've gotten there. But our loan demand is very, very minimal. We have always looked for participation loans and actually with Lallate lending, we started when Billy was in community banking. We did loans with him during that period of time, especially in Shelbyville, but also in as they were revitalizing West Louisville. We did several loans there. And so we've been at Lallate lending since 1998 and was very pleased when Hope was visioned and then became a reality. And, over the time that we have been involved with Hope, we've probably done about $100 million in loans. We currently have about 16 million. We generally like to keep 20 to 25 million on the books. Tamuna did an excellent job of basically going through and describing the benefits and the advantages of it, the geographic footprint that we have. And, Billy went through and described to us that we've done loans all through Kentucky, in Indiana, West Virginia, Ohio, Tennessee, Oregon, Georgia, Texas. And my response is the Middle Fork Financial Group banks have been involved in all of those. And somebody said, well, you're crazy to go to Oregon or even that far out of state. Well, to be truthful with you, we've become comfortable with the fact is Lallate lending and its characteristics do have no boundaries. Our board has a very low risk tolerance to loans in general. And so we've gotten comfortable that the default rate on Lallate lending historically is less than 0.5%. So you get good yields, low risk, and it's done very well for us as we've moved through growing our portfolio in Lallate lending. The thing about it is that Billy also described that we have pre-development loans, construction loans, bridge loans, permanent loans, and also the refinancing of the Lallate loans after they've got through their 15-year tax credit period. We've done all those different ones. We match it off either with our excess liquidity, and if we do go longer term on certain things, we go to the Federal Home Loan Bank and match off certain areas that have as far as periods that we finance in. We mix those very well. We also have been active in buying the tax credits themselves. We're an S Corp, and so we're looking for any way possible to increase the total yield to our shareholders through their tax obligation. And so we've done that also. But I just find that it is great flexibility. When we first started in Lallate lending, the regulator, simply because it was new to us back in 1998, would question us about those type. And actually, they had not seen that many type loans of that nature. But as we've gotten along, there's been no issue on anything as far as credit quality, documentation deficiencies. And if anything is needed or questioned, the support staff at Hope is just outstanding to work with. And we just never have had any problem with them. And so my suggestion, if you're not involved in the Hope process, please review it and look at it, because I think it's an outstanding method to increase revenue and put good low risk asset on your books. And for those that are participating, thank you, because it truly is great to help people get into quality housing and work with in an industry that is greatly beneficial on a lot of circumstances.
Thanks very much, Fred. I think you've done a great job on that. Is there any downside you can describe? Obviously the 15-year perm period is always a challenge, but again, our goal is to split that up so that no one bank has to take on a lot of that interest rate risk. So I'm assuming that most of your perm loans are not a material asset on your bank books.
Billy, they are not the permanent financing. We have been very cognizant of that. I will admit, though, if I had to go back again 10 years and look at the interest rate cycle that we've been in, I probably left some money on the table by not doing more permanent financing. But, with the diversification of the pre-development loans, the construction loans, and then the bridge loans, which basically are on the books, 3 to 5 years as you receive those tax credit payments, you can diversify in so many different periods that you don't have a concentration of duration. I'll tell you, as in our banks, the biggest challenge we've got is that the loans are so successful in being paid off and go through as planned, maintaining our volume. As I said, we've got $16 million corporately on the books right now. I'd like to have 25 million. And because it's simply we don't have the local loan demand that can help our balance sheet. So I don't have any downside on it by any means. It's just a great ability to move and to increase revenue on your balance sheet that is hard to find anymore. It's just banking is becoming tougher every day. And so I think this is a very viable option.
Well, Fred, thank you so much for your willingness to be on this podcast and for your support of Hope and the KBA, longtime supporter of the KBA as a board member and otherwise. So we really appreciate that. I want to conclude with just talking about a couple of projects that Hope has been involved in the financing that are particularly meaningful, at least to me. First one would be a loan for a place called the Healing Place, a nonprofit here in Louisville. The Healing Place is a nonprofit that provides housing and other supportive services to both men and women with drug dependency, and does it at zero cost to the dependent. Tax credits were used several years ago to double the size of their downtown men's facility here in Louisville. And believe it or not, I'm sure you can believe it, that facility was filled up overnight, which is not a good thing. The housing tax credit program has been used to finalize similar facilities all across the state using that particular model. And the thing that I really like about the Healing Place model is that their non-reoccurrence rate is around 80%, meaning there's only about 20% that go back to that dependency. And that's measured a year after they leave the program. Actually, the University of Kentucky does a survey for the people coming out of the program. So it's done on an independent basis, and they measure that and give those stats back. The second one would be a project we actually just finished in Scottsville, Kentucky, that repurposed an old veterans hospital that had been sitting idle for many, many years, other than their occasional use for a haunted house at Halloween, and was converted into units for seniors housing. There's a lot of projects around the state where idle facilities have been brought back to life with affordable housing. A lot of them were schools, but I think there's more opportunities to do that with a lot of our rural downtowns. You know, we're by vacant and abandoned buildings could be brought back, putting housing maybe on the second floor and retail or office on the first floor. So I think that could be a real revitalization tool for a lot of our Kentucky cities. So I'd like to end our podcast with encouraging you to go to our new website that we just designed, which is hopeofthemidwest.com, or feel free to contact myself, Tamuna, or Tammy Nichols, who are all very involved with Hope, or I'd encourage a banker that's on the fence or wants to know more about how a bank can benefit to call Fred Brashear, who's been a long time user of Hope, as you've heard. And then finally, don't forget to register for the KBA convention that Nina talked about in beautiful Asheville. We thank you for listening.